Hi, I'm the Moorlander and this is Moorlander EDC. I'm sure if you're here in the UK recently that you spotted that Heinnie Haynes released their collaboration with Kizer, the ZipSlip. I thought I'd pick one up just to see a couple of things really. First of all, this is my first 154 cm knife. Never had one of these before. I've also never had a Kizer knife. Yeah, this is the first Kizer knife that I've ever owned. And two, you know, it's all about that nice red Heinnie Haynes exclusivity. I have a few of these now, so once you got one, you've got to get them all. So let's have a closer look at the ZipSlip Heinnie Haynes edition. So I thought before we have a quick look at the knife, we'll just have a quick look at the unboxing. The box itself is reasonably kind of standard. Well, actually, I've never had a Kizer knife before, so I guess it's kind of standard, but it's nothing super special. It's wrapped in this, and you also get some extra screws and things here, just in case you do want to take it apart and you lose some of those. There is a little sticker which looks like some sort of koala bear dressed as Captain Jack Sparrow. Is that a Kizer thing? Do they like koala bears? And then on the inside of this little bit here, so you get some care usage instructions, and you also get a nice little microfiber cloth, which I think's nice. It's especially nicer than you get with some companies that are just like, here's a knife. So it's great that you get that. Now, as far as the budget for a knife like this, it's probably what you would class as a middle tier kind of style knife. Steel wise, you do get a nicer steel than you get on some of the budget knives. It's a mid-range steel, but it's certainly a very well respected steel. I hadn't come across this steel in the past. This is the first time I have. But before we get onto the steel, as we usually do, we'll have a look at some measurements, and then we'll go around the knife and have a look at its construction and some of the key points, shall we say. Now, as far as measurements are concerned, while it is open like this, from the butt of the scales all the way through to the tip of the knife, comes in at 173 millimeters. I think for an EDC style knife, it's just that kind of size that you expect for one of these EDC style knives. Not too big, not too small. You know, it's that Goldilocks, just right kind of size. Closing it up, it comes in at 101 millimeters. There's no extended tang. I think what was the knife that I looked at recently was the Sokoke from Civivi. The tang did just extend ever so slightly, but as far as that, it is from scale to scale 110 millimeters. Now, the length of the knife stock on this comes in at 72 millimeters. So as far as UK EDC, UK knife law friendly knives is concerned, this is definitely within that. So the stock that protrudes past the scales at 72 millimeters is definitely 3 inches or less. The length of the cutting edge, so you'll hopefully be able to see here, there is quite a long ricasso from the edge of from the end of the scales to where the cutting edge actually starts. The cutting edge itself comes in at 2.5 inches, and the length of the actual blade, or the full length of the blade itself, is 2.8 inches. So definitely within that 3 inches or less. And plus, this is a slip joint, so you know, they're the two main points. It needs to be 3 inches or less and a non-locking knife. So this is perfectly legal for you to carry in a public place here in the UK. So the full length of that was 72 millimeters. The length of, or at least the width of the stock on here, is 2.9 millimeters, so let's just round that up to 3, which I think is a good thickness for blade stock. Now, I've mentioned it a few times. I have talked about the construction. The blade on this is made from 154 cm stainless steel. So rather than being a high carbon steel that you need to worry a little bit more as far as maintenance is concerned, this is a stainless steel. It does mean, I know, so stainless steel itself will stain, it will rust, but because of the chromium levels in this, it is heightened over a carbon steel, which will, you know, you do need to do some maintenance too. But it does mean for the higher levels of chromium in this that it will last a lot longer, and you know, you just need to make sure that it stays clean and you don't leave it out in the rain for 6 years. Maybe not 6 years, but you know what I mean. There are some other additions to this, so I forget the actual makeup of this. It's melodium, menadillium, whatever it is. So it has higher counts of that in its makeup, which does add some extra features to it that, you know, puts it against some other mid-level steels. So for a mid-range steel, it's on the higher end of those mid-range steels, but it's certainly not a steel that breaks the bank considering the qualities that you have in here. Here in the UK at the moment, this is going, I think it's £55, but because it's one of the Heinnie Haynes versions, they currently have a deal on with this, and it's £49. I'll double check that, but you know, I'll leave the links so that you can check these. So for the qualities that are in this for a mid-range steel, you know, they're very good. Now, as far as the geometries and the grinds on here, the geometry of this, it's classed as a drop point. It almost does look a little bit clip pointy, but from the shoulder of the blade here coming down to the tip, there isn't a defined change in that angle. It is still just one perfect line, which considers it more as a drop point. What I do like is this swedge across the top. Rather than going all the way across the spine and through the ricasso here, it just stops maybe half of the way down, which almost gives it like a spear kind of point. The finish to this is a satin finish, which is one of my favorite finishes. I think it does really well when you get it in the light there. It almost has, I was going to say iridescent, but I don't think there's really a change in colors, but you can see the difference in the light as it bounces off here. And the swedge that's on there, I think is very nice. It is a low saber grind, so the ricasso, or at least the ricasso that is usually just meant for this rear section, does kind of push through to the tip here. But with it being a low saber grind, it just means that more of that 3 inches comes down, or sorry, 3 millimeters of the stock comes down here. It adds a nice bit of weight to this. It's still perfectly balanced, but it does add a little bit more weight to it, which I like. I like a weightier knife because you know it's in your pocket, or more to the point, you know when it's not in your pocket. If you've left it somewhere, you'll hopefully remember to go back and pick it up. But we have a flat grind on here. It does, I'm not going to lie, it generally does feel ever so slightly hollow grind, but it's definitely not. It is a flat grind when you hold it up against its edge like that. Obviously I'm trying to do this through the camera, but I was actually looking at it myself down here. It is a flat grind. As far as where it kind of melts in, the plunge line into the ricasso here, you also have a Spanish notch or a sharpening choil on there so that you can keep that plunge line nice and tacked. As far as how sharp this is, out of the box, it is a lot sharper than a lot of other knives that I have tested on the channel recently. In fact, it will very easily shave the hairs off your arm. So, as with most knives, especially slip joints, you just have to be that extra specially careful with them. Coming through onto the handles, you have some really nice stainless steel liners in here. Rather than being skeletonized, they're not, which again adds to the weight of this, which again, you know, I really appreciate. On the outside of the liners, you then have this really nice G10 scale. So with this being one of Heinnie Haynes's exclusives, it's in the Heinnie Haynes red. The way in which this works, or at least the pivot mechanism on here, so it has a spine spring on this, but so when I close the spine, when I close this, you'll notice that there is no movement in that spring. I haven't took this apart, but I'm guessing, so looking down into here, you'll see there's actually 2 stages to this. So I think what they've done is they've done one of those where it's got the spring is milled separately from that spine. It's still all one piece of material, but the spring moves independently from that spine piece there. So rather than lifting when it closes and opens, it stays perfectly in place, which again, it just adds to the aesthetic. It's a very nice feel, and I guess as well it will also let less dust, less debris, less pocket lint get into that spring when it's opening and closing, because the top of it doesn't move. When it closes, so I guess as far as detents is concerned, you have your open detent, which is a good positive lock into position. I will say that that spring though isn't as tight as other springs that I've had. So it does lock, or it does hold it, that detent is there into position. It doesn't take as much force as others to close. Whether that's something that you prefer, whether that's something that you dislike, you know, it's completely down to you. Other detents on here, so it does kind of stop. There is a detent at this 10 o'clock position. It then comes down to roughly a 7 o'clock position, and then there is a spring. Now, so the spring that closes the detent, again, so it kind of does it very close to your 6 o'clock position. It's not a particularly strong or snap, I will say. I don't mean to say strong, because when it is closed, it's closed. You know, this isn't accidentally going to open your pocket, and there's definitely no sort of inertia flick that you can do with this. You have to either open this by pulling it out or using the thumb studs on there, but it's just a nice little kind of spring that then holds it into place. It's not like you'd expect maybe from something like a Victorinox knife, where from here it snaps down onto your finger and bites a lot. It's just a little bit more elegant. There seems to be a little bit more finesse put into this, so it's less of a jarring motion. I guess in a way as well, as far as your pivot and the connection around the pivot, it will add and add to the longevity and lessen the amount of maintenance that you'd possibly allow, that you'd need to do to it. Again, it's completely down to you how you prefer your knives, how you prefer more of a positive lock. Again, I think I'm using the wrong terminology for that. There is definitely a good positive lock, and there's no inertia flick on this, but it's the point. I'm really talking about this way too much. It's not this massive of a point, but yes, so it does lock into position nicely. Your spacers on this, so your spacer is built into the spring that goes across the spine of the scales and the handle. There are 2 small pins here that will go through this on the inside through to there, which is part of that spacer and rear, that back spring mechanism. Comes down roughly to about halfway on the back here. When it closes, this is often a part that I often overlook, and I definitely need to do this more. It is perfectly centered. There's maybe a millimeter, actually it's probably less than that, maybe half a millimeter either side clearance, which again is really nice. It will help to reduce the dust and debris and pocket lint that gets in there when it's in your pocket. As far as the pocket clip is concerned, it is a deep carry pocket clip. There is maybe a millimeter difference, which is probably the size of the pocket clip from the top. It isn't unfortunately reversible, so if you're a lefty and you prefer to swap it onto the other side, fortunately with this one you can't do it. Might be a slight omission depending on whether you do prefer to swap your pocket clips over. For me, being right-handed, it's certainly not an issue for me. Ergonomics on this are great. I can still get all 4 fingers onto this whilst holding it. The first finger, my index finger, is perfectly indexed into this choil here at the front, which does allow you a good, what's the word? I forgot the word there. Well, you know, you can hold this really well. You can get a good grasp if you're needing to do some fine work. I would definitely say don't put a lot of pressure on the top here. I think maybe that's why they haven't put any jimping on here, to make you not want to put more pressure on here. As I say, the spring is good, but it does want to kind of close, because you're not really holding your finger up against so that you can get that purchase there. It is past, and it's quite a distance past this, but if you're used to slip joints, then it's just part of owning a slip joint, and it's something that you just need to get used to. But the other 3 fingers hold perfectly in this palm swell and do give you a good position and a good grip on this hand, on the actual knife itself. Opening it, if you've not noticed already, so you can get a good grip on the ricasso here to be able to open it. There isn't a thumb nick, but there is on both sides. You have a thumb stud on there, so you can open it with one hand. I think if they'd have placed the thumb stud down here a little bit more, it would have been able to make it a little bit easier to get a grip on that when you're opening it. It's a quality of life thing. It's not a massive issue, but I think if they'd have just been maybe a few millimeters down here, that'd have been great. On this side, you can see that it is made from Kizer knives. You have the small Kizer logo on there. And then on the opposite side, you can see that it says the ZipSlip. You have the Heinnie Haynes small h, and you can also see that this was designed by Michael Viagno. Vagino, I'm guessing it's an Italian name, and it's Vigno. I apologise if I've absolutely ruined your name there, Michael. But yes, the designer's name is on there as well. I think for my first Kizer knife, I know of their reputation of making just very nice, budget-friendly knives. The fact that you've got your 154 cm steel on here, which is an incredibly well-respected steel. In fact, so it's weirdly timed. I was having a conversation the other day, so I'm part of an EDC group called the EDC Collab group, and we just had a quick call the other evening. There was myself, there was EDC NC, and there was also max level EDC. And we were discussing this very steel, so it was very strangely timed. Now I will say, it's the right thing to do. As soon as you finish this piece of content, make sure you go and find EDC NC and max level EDC. Give them some love. Tell them Randy from Moorland EDC sent you, and say hello, and yeah, drop them a subscription as well. Great channels, putting out some great content. Their no, that's the wrong word. Their knowledge of steels and the makeup of steels is far better than mine. Certainly learned a lot from those chaps. But yes, go and give them some love, please, from me. Yeah, like I say, tell them Randy from Moorland really sent you and said hello. But where was I? So, as far as the reputation that Kizer have built on their knives, it's met expectations. Plus, as well, with it being one of Heinnie Haynes' exclusives with that red on there, as mentioned before, you know, they all have these red scales as part of their kind of branding. They use a certain colour of red. And yeah, I've got a few of these now, so I had to buy this one just to make it so that I've got them all. I suppose it's point worth mentioning as well. So I have worked with Heinnie before in the past. However, This isn't in collaboration with them. I saw this on there and I thought, right, I'll pick one of those up. Yeah, make some content on it. But I will leave Hennie's links below. If you're here in the UK, hopefully you'll know who they are. If you're in Europe, or North America, wherever you're or in the world, Heinnie are one of, if not the largest UK supplier, online retailer for knives and kind of your EDC gear. So yes, I'll leave their links below. I'll leave some of my social media links so that you can see more from me here on Moorlander EDC and my sister channel Moorlander Tactical. But for now, as always, stay safe, stay Moorlander and stay EDC. So I thought before we get into the unboxing, sorry, not bad. Maybe I should have a word with Heinnie and see if I can get a discount code. Oh, by the way, yeah, I think these are discounted at the moment. I think they're normally £55 and they're down to 49, which it's about 10% discount, isn't it? Maybe just a little bit more. My maths is terrible. My dad was a maths teacher. He'd be looking down at me from Valhalla at this moment and going, shame on you, son, you should know better than that. Anyway, where was I? He's probably not in Valhalla. He's probably in another heaven? Let's try to think. Anyway, so yeah. That's it. I don't know what to waffle about today. What is there to waffle? I mentioned waffle on a call the other day. I was talking to some American friends, not the ones I was just on about, and I said waffle, and they didn't know what it was. They didn't understand it. Anyway. Right, have a great day. Love you lots. See you soon. Bye.